Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome or welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. With me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, it is a splendiferous Oregon. That's right, splendiferous. I actually had to look that word up because I wasn't sure that I wasn't just making it up, but it is in fact a real word, and splendiferous means with great beauty and splendor. Definitely, that is Oregon right now. I know I've said it, but if you haven't been out to the Pacific Northwest, this is really the time for you to come. Summer, visit, enjoy, go Oregon. How are you doing? How is your More Dry July going? Mine is going awesome. Thank you so much for asking. Did you ask? Last week I was talking about the fact that I was really down to only one more day that I was going to be including alcohol. That has since passed. So we are now talking like I have, 10 more days, 7 from the day that this drops. And those will be completely alcohol free for me. And that is totally good. That is awesome. And, part of being an alcohol minimalist means that I include alcohol in my life in a minimal way, and I prioritize alcohol-free days. So for me, increasing to 25 alcohol-free days during July is just one of the ways that I work on making those alcohol-free days a priority for my year. Right? So I do more dry July, I do more sober October, I do dryuary, and those are the ways that I find that it helps me maintain and have more alcohol-free days on a global basis. So no matter where you are, I hope that you have taken the opportunity in July to up that number of alcohol-free days, trying to maybe add 1, have 3 a week, whatever it looks like for you. That is great. And I hope that you've found success in doing it. Today on the podcast, actually, before we get there, I do have an announcement for my friends over at Moderation Management. Moderation Management is hosting their very first virtual summit this weekend, July 27th and 28th, if you are listening to this in real time when it drops on the 24th. And the Moderation Management Mindset Summit. So it's all about how to create a moderation mindset. And this virtual summit has got a lot of experts, a lot of industry experts, other podcast hosts, other coaches, people that are really the experts in helping people change their relationship with alcohol. And Moderation Management, if you are not familiar with it, is a nonprofit that is really dedicated to helping people change their drinking habits and to do it in a way that does not require you to be completely abstinent, sober, alcohol-free. So it aligns with everything that I talk about, and I have been a volunteer for Moderation Management now for about 3 years, and they're doing great work there. This virtual summit is going to be awesome. It's fully recorded. So even if you can't make it live, if you sign up ahead of time and you're registered, then you will get all access to all of the videos. I think you're going to love it, and you can check it out at www.moderation.org. I will link it in the show notes, and I hope to see you there. So this is an appropriate conversation that I was just talking about, a moderation mindset, because today's episode, I'm going to touch on a little bit more deeply about mindset and specifically on changing thoughts and changing your mindset around alcohol in a way that I don't know that I've talked about it before. I have talked about your alcohol core beliefs. And if you don't know what that is that I'm referencing, I will link all of them in the show notes. But back in January, I kind of outlined some core beliefs that I've seen repeated many times across the hundreds of people that I've worked with in terms of these 4 long held beliefs that fuel desire. So when I talk about your thoughts creating a feeling that lead to your actions that get the results that you have in your life, and I talk about that through the behavior map result cycle, I talk about it all the time here on the podcast. Your core beliefs all really lead to and fuel desire. So that's kind of where those go, right? Those are the thoughts. They oftentimes are unconscious thoughts that we're not even aware that we have. But when you have developed a habit of drinking and you have turned to alcohol repeatedly over time, those unconscious beliefs, those unconscious thoughts fuel your desire. And that's why sometimes it can feel like you are almost drinking against your will. You know, you think like, I want to change my drinking. I want to cut back. I want to reduce. I want to minimize. And yet 5 o'clock rolls around and you feel compelled to drink. And those are really because of those unconscious core beliefs and what you believe alcohol is giving you. And it fuels the feeling of desire. The thing about our thoughts is that with every thought that we have, every single thought fuels that creates a feeling of some sort. Every feeling that we have is there because of a thought. And sometimes we're not familiar with those thoughts, right? We don't recognize the thoughts. They happen so quickly. They seem very automatic. And we do get into habit patterns with automatic and default type thinking that becomes practiced, and they create, again, feelings that we might return to often. We might continually have a feeling of stress in our lives because we practice a lot of thoughts that create the feeling of stressed out, anxious, overwhelmed. And we don't even recognize our own agency in creating those feelings. And that stuff, again, those are feelings, right? So the feelings that you have in your life, if you look at the behavior map result cycle, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the feelings are in the middle of the behavior map result cycle. I say they're in the middle for a reason, because they are literally at the heart of everything that we do or that we don't do in our lives. And our feelings, we put such emphasis on them, we don't recognize often the narrative that the thoughts that we have that create those feelings in the first place. We often look past that. We blame external circumstances. We blame people. We blame a lot of other things in our lives, and we do not take accountability for our role in creating our feelings. And at the heart of everything that I teach, I say that it's about becoming a better thinker, about becoming a better mind manager, because we have to understand and we have to connect those dots between our thoughts and our feelings and the actions that we take or do not take, because all of that determines the results that we have in our lives. And today I want to talk to you about how thoughts about the choices that we're making around alcohol, or the things that I'm asking you to do with regards to changing your behavior around alcohol, how those thoughts can be either helpful or not helpful, useful or not useful, as they apply to actually changing our behavior. And I think that is different. That's different than how they actually, and it does come back to what feelings they create. All right. It's absolutely true. But I want you to start looking for your thoughts and asking yourself if the thoughts that I'm thinking are helping me create a mindset that helps me achieve the goals that I have regarding creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol, or are the thoughts I'm having actually taking me in the opposite direction? Are they moving me further away from my goal of creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol? And so I don't think that I have ever gotten down to brass tacks here on the podcast and talked about how we can uncover thoughts. And when we uncover thoughts, what we need to do to help ourselves and to help our brains with this skill of metacognition, being able to observe our own thinking, to establish and change thought patterns. How do we do it? Because it's really easy for me to say to you, you need to change your thoughts. You need to challenge your core beliefs. You need to work on thoughts that create different emotions. But how do we do it? How can we increase that skill? If you are not familiar with this concept, I guarantee you, I mean, I've said it before, I definitely say it in my groups and in my coursework, but you got to write things down. And so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about journaling and how I think a way to journal that is maybe a little bit different than the way that you've thought about journaling in the past. And it's journaling specifically to help you determine whether the thoughts you're having are helpful or unhelpful as it relates to changing your relationship with alcohol, taking the actions that you want to take so that you can get the results that you want in your life. And that's really what I want you to hear. This is what we are going to talk about today. And it's going to be about journaling in a way that I hope helps you, that makes it easier, that helps you create self-awareness, and that helps you do it really ultimately. So journaling, and just as a side note, journaling is different than tracking. Okay. I am not talking about writing down a doable drink plan, though I do suggest that all the time as well. Whether you're writing it down or tracking it in an app like Sunnyside, that is not the kind of journaling that I am talking about. That is planning and tracking. And obviously, I say it all the time, we cannot change what we cannot see. So we have to track, we have to pay attention, we have to know how much we're drinking, but we also have to know what we are thinking. And the way that you can find out what your thoughts are, the very easiest way, is to write them down. And writing them down and then taking it to the next step and deciding whether or not that thought, okay, is helpful in terms of creating the change that you're looking for, or if it is not. All right. So that's the way we're going to approach this conversation today. Have you ever heard the acronym THINK? You've heard the word think, obviously, but it can be an acronym too. And the acronym stands for, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Which is a spin on a quote all the way back from Socrates, who simply said, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And that's a question that we want to ask ourselves about the thoughts that we are having. Are they true? Are they helpful? Are they necessary? Are they kind? Here's the thing with our 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot, right? You're not conscious of many of them, but all of them are optional. We get to choose what we want to keep thinking, what we want to repeat, because when we repeat something, that is what creates belief. Repeating a thought doesn't make it true, right? It does make you believe it more. And I really want you to hear me on that. Repeating a thought doesn't make it any more true. However, it will make you believe it more. So our goal with this type of journaling is to help us uncover thoughts so that we can decide if we want to keep thinking them or if we decide that they are unhelpful, unnecessary, unkind, or untrue, at least from the context of your goal of creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol. We're going to work on no longer thinking them. We're not going to allow our brains to keep going there. Here are 3 tips that I want to offer you in terms of helping you uncover your thoughts with a journal or with a piece of paper, wherever you're going to write it down. I want you to be writing things down. The first thing is that I want you to understand that, again, the only reason we're going to even journal right now in the first place is because we want to become self-aware of our thinking now. And I want you to become aware of your thinking as it relates to how does this support my goal of changing my relationship with alcohol. That's the kind of thoughts that we're talking about right now. This is super important because for many of us, we may believe that journaling is about getting all your feelings out, right? You may be trying to solve a problem. You may be able to maybe brainstorming about something. You're maybe looking to feel better through journaling. And those are all valid reasons why people write things down, okay? But I want us to focus on journaling in a way that, again, is with a goal of creating self-awareness of our thoughts. We want to see what is going on inside of our brains and to get clarity and to decide if the thoughts are something that are taking us towards our goal or away from it. And this is a really important part of creating sustainable change. You literally cannot change your drinking habits for the long term or achieve any other goal, by the way, without this kind of self-awareness. If you do not see how your thoughts are either helping you and driving you towards actions that support your goals or driving you towards actions that take you away from them. I hope that just by giving you that context of self-awareness, hopefully it kind of takes the pressure off and makes journaling feel a little bit easier just from the get-go, right? You're not trying to resolve some big issue of the past. You're not trying to figure out what you have to do next. You're not really trying to feel amazing afterwards, because that isn't what we're here for with this kind of journaling. When you go into a journaling session and you've got all this other stuff on top of it, you can often create a sense of judgment before you even start writing because you don't know what to write. It's kind of like going into a bookstore and browsing lots of books, and instead of being determined to find the perfect book to read cover to cover, we're just going to be okay with letting the books all be there. And we're really going to be a clinical observer. We're going to just see everything. And we are going to decide whether or not those books are they attractive or are they not attractive? Are they good or bad? You can make it that simple with your thoughts. It is no big deal to do this kind of journaling. And I really want you to ask yourself, if you are having a thought right now, like, I don't want to have to journal, I'm just going to ask you, step away from that and think to yourself. So first of all, I want you to put this phrase in front of it. I think that I don't want to journal. Now, adding in the the little I think phrase beforehand is putting my brain on notice that it is just a thought. I think that I don't want to journal. I think that I don't want to have to journal. And I want to ask you, when you have that thought, do you believe that it is a helpful thought or is it an unhelpful thought? It's certainly not going to help you journal, right? So if I'm telling you that this type of journaling is going to get you faster results, and you are having thoughts like, I don't want to have to journal, you are taking yourself further away from your goal. Maybe, how about a thought just as simple as, I'm willing to be wrong that I don't want to have to journal. I'm willing to be wrong that journaling is boring, or whatever thoughts you might be having. Okay. This is one of those things that as you develop just the skill of learning how to recognize a thought and determine whether or not a thought is helpful or unhelpful, creating this awareness of your own thinking, it is a skill that with consistency and over time is going to help you improve in so many other areas of your life, I promise. Hey, it's Molly, and I just want to talk with you for a minute about Sunnyside. I know I talk about Sunnyside and have been talking about Sunnyside for, 2 years now. And I want to let you know that that is because of not only the results that I see my clients get, but because I know the people at Sunnyside and I know how committed they are to making a product that really delivers, not only in terms of results, but in terms of user experience. They recently launched an Android version of the Sunnyside app, and inside the app, there's new upgrades and ways to support you that really are defined by the user experience. And that is just something that I really appreciate about them. I know you can trust who they are as a company, and that's really important to me. I would love for you to check it out. Go to sunnyside.co/Molly to get started with a 15-day free trial today. Journaling tip number 2. So number 1 is just to understand why we do it and accept what it is that we are gaining from our journaling practice, and that is self-awareness. Journaling tip number 2 is that you're not going to just sit there with a blank page. You're going to give yourself a simple and direct question as a journaling prompt. Rather than just sitting there and staring and having no idea what to write, because I know that is a lot of us, I want you to ask yourself a very simple and direct question. Because I'll tell you what, our brains evolved to answer questions. Our human brains evolved to be problem solvers. That's how we survived. The people that were able to solve the most problems survived the longest. And so answering questions is something that your brain is hardwired to do. And it's kind of good news and bad news, because you also kind of have to be careful about what types of questions you ask yourself, because you can go down some big rabbit holes. And that's why I'm telling you, you want to keep your questions, especially for this type of practice of developing self-awareness around thoughts that fuel your desire to either achieve your goals or take you further away. So those are the kind of thoughts that we're looking for, these thoughts that are helpful or unhelpful. Short, simple, direct questions, phrases that you can get very specific about. So something like this would be an appropriate, simple, direct question that you might journal on. What do I think about my doable drink plan from yesterday? This is a good prompt because it's specific, right? And a different, maybe not so good thought or not so good prompt might sound something more like, what's going on with all of my off-plan drinking I've been doing during more dry July? Do you notice how the first sentence focused you in on yesterday and a specific thing? And it's very, very clear, very direct. Whereas the second one just is kind of got you going all through the month. It's looking for all the reasons that you've been off plan, which could take you down tons of other rabbit holes like stress over your work, or maybe you've got a relationship issue or family issues, who knows? And none of that is going to is going to keep you focused on just a simple thing. And I really want you to focus on, like I said, a question about some of the tactics or some of the tools that you are using to change your relationship with alcohol. So I would suggest asking yourself questions about your doable drink plan. I would suggest prompts about your off-plan plan. Ask yourself questions about how you are challenging your core beliefs. Do I believe? And then ask, what do I think about my core belief being alcohol helps me relieve stress, whatever yours is. I want you to get very specific and try for finding thoughts and then determining, right, if that thought is helpful, useful, necessary, true, and kind. Remember, we are not trying to figure out why you're thinking what you're thinking. This is important. We are not here to determine why you're thinking it. We are literally just looking to decide whether or not the thought you are having is helpful and useful, or if it is creating a feeling that is taking you away from creating your peaceful relationship with alcohol. Simply by observing our own thinking, making a decision, labeling the thought one way or the other, we are building up the skill of metacognition and increasing self-awareness. We are also reinforcing the fact that your thoughts are just that. They are thoughts. They are optional. They are just yours. Not right, just yours. And you have a choice to keep thinking thoughts or not. Self-awareness of your thought as a thought is the very first step in becoming better at metacognition and ultimately changing not only your relationship with alcohol, but your relationship with yourself. And it's how you are going to really get any goal that you want in your life. Now, many people will accidentally and unintentionally find themselves going down rabbit holes, asking themselves why they think something. And this is not, again, that's not useless in the grand scheme of life. There are reasons that you might want to understand how a core belief came to be or why you think the way that you do. But in regards to habit change and in regards to attaining a goal or working on an action and determining how you want to show up for yourself for today, we don't need to worry about it. We just need to know what you are thinking right in this minute so that we can decide whether or not it is helpful in achieving our goal. When you ask yourself why you think something, like you're going to dig up into your past, right? You're going to find other things that you're going to look for other people, look for ways to outsource and blame for why you feel the way you do or why you think the way you do. And instead, again, you just want to be a scientific observer and realize that it's just a thought that you are thinking. It is a thought that got into your head somehow. And yes, probably you did hear it from your parents, or you probably did start thinking it when something difficult was going on in your life. But you actually don't need to know that. You don't need any of the background in order to get the self-awareness about whether or not that thought is moving you towards your goal right now. I talk about in my book, and I've talked about here on the podcast before, and I say it to my coaching clients all the time. The past only exists today in what I think about it. I want you to think about that. The past only exists today in what I think about it. So it doesn't matter what I was taught, how I was brought up around alcohol, what my, how it doesn't matter in the context of how I think today. I get to choose how I think about my past, and I get to choose what I make it mean so that I can take the actions that I want to take in my life so that I can have the results that I want to have in my life now. That's just the way that this goes. And If we recognize how our thoughts create our feelings, and that we can see how thoughts that we have in a day are taking us towards our goal or away from it, that is really such a relief. And honestly, it is not like we are here to solve the problems of our childhood. We are here to take better actions so that we get better results in our life right now. Tip number 3. So tip number 2, again, is to ask yourself, I kind of got off on a diatribe there, but tip number 2 is to ask yourself a specific question. And my guidance there is to make it a question about the tools, the tactics, the core beliefs. Ask yourself, what do I think about? What do you think about? And then fill in the blank. Use those words. What do I think about at the beginning of your specific question? This is tip number 3. And then when you write out your thought, after you write it down, like I said before, in front of it, write the words, I think. Because I really want you to start identifying that these are just thoughts. They are optional. They are completely at your discretion, whether you keep thinking them or not. And even if you have a ton of evidence that says that the thoughts that you have are true, I want you to allow yourself, just say to myself, I'm willing to be wrong about the fact that, and whatever it is. I'm going to make this last part easy for you in terms of kind of how this, how hard you work at this. I want you to either aim for 5 different thoughts that you are identifying and deciding whether or not they're, helpful, or and whether they're helpful or not, right? But 5 thoughts or 5 minutes. 5 thoughts or 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes you can't find anything, you cannot figure this out, then close the book or put the paper away and come back to it tomorrow. If you find a thought that is helpful, go ahead and put a star beside it. And if it is a terrible, no good, unhelpful, unuseful thought that is creating a negative feeling either about you or a thought that is driving your desire to drink, then write it down, put the words I think in front of it, and then put an X beside it, maybe even a red X. All right? Mark it for yourself and decide, this thought is not helpful to me. This is not useful. This is not helping me feel like I want to take the actions that help me to get to the result that I really want, which is a peaceful relationship with alcohol. This process of seeing your thoughts, building your neuroplasticity, and separating yourself from your own thinking, this is how we start creating sustainable change. And if you would like to learn more about how to work on your mindset and make change easier, I would invite you to come check out my new 30-day program that has lots of neuroscience hacks and daily actions in it to support sustainable change. It's called Drink Less Success, and you can check it out at www.mollywatts.com/drinkless. And that, by the way, is if you have done Just Start in the past, this is really an improved version of Just Start. So I sent it out to my mailing list, and if you didn't get that, you can do Drink Less Success for free. If you've already done Just Start, just email me, let me know that you'd like to, and I'm happy to add you to that. Inside of Drink Less Success are the same things that were included in Just Start. You get the audio version of my book. You get a 30-day companion guide. In Drink Less Success, you get 30 days of emails every single day. You get exercises, you get neuroplasticity exercises, you get brain training, and all of it to support the rewiring of your habits. So check it out. I hope that this episode helped you at least understand how you can start working on uncovering those thoughts, deciding if they're helpful or useful. And that's, managing your mind, whether it's about managing your mind in terms of understanding those thoughts that are fueling desire, understanding thoughts that are creating the feelings of stress and overwhelm in your life, or if it's just the thoughts that are helpful or unhelpful as they relate to taking the actions that you want to take to create the results that you want in your life. And that's, that applies to your relationship with alcohol. That applies to exercise. It applies to how you're eating. It applies to how you're showing up in your relationships, how you show up in your work. You can ask yourself when a thought comes through and you have that kind of feeling of whether the feeling's feeling great. Oftentimes you will have that negative bias and you will notice your negative feelings first. I should just forewarn you. Okay. That's okay. We want to start identifying it because we want to understand that it is our thinking that causes our feelings, and we get to determine, we get to choose whether or not we want to keep thinking something that is not helping us take the actions we want to take to get the results that we want in our lives. All right. My friends, that is all I have for you this week. I am back next week for the last Wednesday in July, the last day of More Dry July. I've got a great interview to share with you next week. And then we are getting ready for the summer content series. Super excited about that. And I hope you're having a great month. I hope it's warm and sunny where you are. At least if you're in the sunny parts of the world. My niece is down in Australia, and I just noticed she was having a holly jolly party. So I know it's the winter down there, but up here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's beautiful summer. It is splendiferous here in Oregon. Have a great week, my friends. Choose peace. Hey, thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 3 ways. You can learn about them over at www.mollywatts.com/workwithme. Or better yet, reach out to me directly. It's molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and discuss what's best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going.